The first thing I saw when I woke up wasn't the ceiling, the beeping monitor, or the fourth stand beside my hospital bed. It was the message on my phone. I took what I deserve. After everything I've put up with, it's only fair. Below it was a screenshot of a drained bank account. $0.42. I blinked, still groggy, my chest aching under the bandages. I just survived open heart surgery after collapsing on the side of a highway outside Boise. 3 clogged arteries. 2 cardiac arrests. 1 emergency stent. And while I was unconscious, literally fighting for my life, my wife had emptied our account. All of it. Over $78,000. My name is Mike O'Rourke. I'm 46. A commercial electrician for over 2 decades. I've worked in cities you've never heard of, fixing problems you'll never see, inside factories you'll never walk through. Not a glamorous job, but a damn reliable one. Paid the mortgage, the utilities, the car insurance. Paid for dinners I barely tasted after long shifts. Paid for my wife Lena's art classes, therapy sessions, yoga retreats. I thought we were stable. Quiet, maybe. A little distant, sure. But stable. Turns out I was the only one still trying. Lena and I met at a roadside diner on the outskirts of Moab. She was waitressing during the day and painting desert skylines at night. I was there for a temp job at a nearby mining facility. She brought me coffee, I left her generous tips, and one evening I asked about the sketch pad she kept half hidden behind the napkin holder. 6 months later, we were married. Quick? Maybe. But back then, it felt electric. She said I grounded her. I thought she lit me up. Over the years, things dimmed. That's not unusual in marriage. But now, staring at her text, I realized it hadn't just dimmed, it had died. And I hadn't even noticed the smoke. The nurse came in a little while later, cheerful but efficient. "How are we feeling today, Mr. Rourke?" I didn't answer right away. Just showed her the message on my screen. She frowned. "I'll get the doctor." Dr. Morrison, a kind-eyed woman in her 50s, explained that I had been brought in 3 days ago after collapsing in a parking lot. A good Samaritan, someone I'll never meet, had called an ambulance. I had flatlined twice on the operating table. "You're lucky," she said. "Another 5 minutes and we would have been too late." I didn't feel lucky. "Anyone we can call to pick you up when you're discharged tomorrow?" I nodded. "Sure," I lied. "Someone'll be there." That night, I called Dean, my younger brother. We hadn't spoken much in the past year. No falling out, just different orbits. He taught high school math, coached wrestling, stayed close to our hometown. I was the older brother who moved around a lot, working contracts, coming home with calloused hands and tired eyes. "Need a favor," I said. "Say the word," he replied instantly. I paused. "I need a place to crash for a bit. And I need you not to tell Lena." Silence. Then, "She doesn't know you're alive?" "Oh, she knows," I said flatly. "She just doesn't know I'm not coming home." Dean picked me up the next day in his beat-up Tacoma. I walked out of the hospital without fanfare, just a plastic bag of my belongings, a folder of instructions, and a pair of compression socks I didn't ask for. We didn't talk much on the drive. When we reached his place, a modest 2-bedroom near a high school, he helped me into the guest room. There was a twin bed, a bookshelf filled with old sports trophies, and a dusty treadmill I'd probably never use. "You want something to eat?" he asked. "No thanks. You should eat. Doctor's orders, right?" I sat down on the bed. "Dean. Lena emptied our accounts while I was unconscious." His face went still. "What? Every dollar. Gone. She said she deserved it." He didn't ask what I planned to do. Just said, "You can stay as long as you need." That night, I couldn't sleep. The hospital mattress had been more comfortable. My chest still ached, but not as much as my pride. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to count all the moments I'd ignored, the quiet phone calls that ended when I entered the room, the new locks on our studio, the weekend trips for inspiration that never produced a single new painting. I remembered refinancing the house 2 months ago. Lena had said she was too busy to go to the notary, so I signed the papers myself. The mortgage was now solely in my name, a move that had seemed innocent at the time. Now, I saw it for what it was, a door swinging open behind me while I walked straight into the fire. 3 days after my discharge, I got a text from Eli, our neighbor. "Hey man. Hope you're okay. Haven't seen you around. Not sure if it's my place, but Lena's had some guy over a few nights. Figured you'd want to know." No punctuation. That's how I knew he was serious. I stared at the screen for a long time, Didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new tab on Dean's laptop and looked up fraud attorneys. The next morning, I took a slow walk with Dean to the main branch of the First National Bank. Not the branch Lena and I used, this was downtown, where they didn't know our faces. "I need to speak to someone in fraud," I said at the desk. 10 minutes later, I was in a room with a middle-aged woman in a navy pantsuit. Her name was Judy. She asked me what happened. I told her. She didn't flinch at the message on my phone. She'd probably seen worse. "Because it's a joint account," she said, "she had legal access. But given your hospitalization and the timing, we can escalate it. With hospital documentation, this may qualify as financial exploitation." I nodded. "Start the process. And you understand that if this proceeds as a criminal matter, law enforcement may get involved?" "I do," I said. When we left the bank, Dean offered to buy lunch. "No appetite," I said. "You've got to eat, Micah." "I will. Just not yet." We rode home in silence again. This time, the wait was different. This time, I wasn't broken. I was planning. Dean's kitchen table became my war room. It was a modest oak table, scratched from years of use, with one uneven leg that always wobbled when you leaned too far on the right side. But it served its purpose. I spread out paperwork, opened my laptop, and started mapping a marriage in reverse. The story was in the numbers. It always is. My first call was to Aaron Davis, an old friend of Dean's who worked as a paralegal at a small law firm in the city. I didn't want to spend money I didn't have yet, so Aaron helped point me in the right direction. She connected me with Russell Blake, a seasoned family law attorney known for taking on messy divorce cases, and winning. "You got blindsided," Russell said after I told him the short version. "But that might work in your favor." He asked for documentation, everything. Bank statements, text messages, hospital discharge papers, proof of joint account activity. I sent it all. "What about the house?" he asked. "It's under my name. I refinanced 2 months ago." She never signed anything. He let out a low whistle. "That's leverage. You've got options." That night, I went back to the beginning. Not of our relationship, but of the paper trail. Lena had never been interested in managing our finances, not even when we were broke. I handled the mortgage, insurance, taxes, retirement. She was the free spirit, the artist, the dreamer. I was the one who built the floor beneath her feet. So it wasn't hard to track the changes. Around 18 months ago, I noticed subtle shifts. Small withdrawals from our joint account that didn't match our usual spending patterns, $120 here, $350 there, always categorized as miscellaneous. Then came the art retreats. She'd leave for long weekends with her friend Casey, always in places with spotty reception. I never questioned it. I trusted her. Now, I knew better. I found an old file in my email marked retirement_options. It had 3 spreadsheets, each showing different scenarios depending on when I stopped working. Lena had never even opened it. She once told me retirement was just a capitalist illusion. I'd laughed at the time. Now, I felt like a fool. On day 4 at Dean's, a notification popped up on my laptop. A charge from a boutique hotel in Missoula. 2 nights, 1 suite, spa services. Lena's name on the reservation. I hadn't been in Missoula in over a year. I forwarded the receipt to Russell. "This isn't evidence of an affair," I wrote. "But it's a damn good start." He replied within minutes. "Don't worry. We'll make it count." Meanwhile, Lena had gone from silence to noise. It started with a series of texts. "Where are you? I went by the hospital and your room was empty. Are you okay?" I didn't respond. The next day. "Micah, this is ridiculous. We need to talk. We can fix this." I was upset. "You scared me. I didn't know what to do." Still, I said nothing. Then. "Fine. If this is how you want it, don't expect me to wait around forever." That one almost made me laugh. Dean returned from work with takeout that night. He slid a greasy paper bag across the table. "You gonna tell me what the next step is?" he asked. I took a bite of the lukewarm burger. "I'm not sure yet. But I know one thing. I'm not going back." "Good," he said. "You shouldn't." He hesitated, then added, "You know she's seeing someone, right?" "Yeah," I said. "Eli told me. That guy's a damn snake. Always gave me weird vibes." I nodded, chewing slowly. "It's not just that he's with her. It's that he pretended to be my friend." Dean raised an eyebrow. "You thinking what I'm thinking? That he's in on it?" I asked. "More than in on it." I started digging deeper. Not just into Lena's actions, but into Eli's. I searched public records, social media posts, business filings, anything that might connect the dots. I didn't find much until I stumbled across an Instagram post from a mutual acquaintance. A picture taken at a cabin on Lake Flathead. Eli and Lena, standing close. Too close. The post was tagged from 5 months ago, when she told me she was in Seattle for a gallery viewing. Russell called later that night. "Got your email. That's great material. But we'll need something stronger." "What's stronger than them lying about a trip together?" "A financial link," he said. "Shared accounts. Transactions. Property. Anything that shows planning." I thought for a moment. She mentioned once that Eli helped her build a new shed in the backyard. Said he knew a guy. The shed wasn't cheap. "You have receipts?" "Not yet." "Get them." The next morning, I logged into the home improvement credit account we'd used for big purchases. There it was, a $7,400 charge from Summit Lumber and Supply, 4 months ago. The shipping address matched our house. Delivery contact? Eli's phone number. I set it to Russell. "That's more like it," he said. On day 6, I finally responded to Lena. Just 2 words. "Talk to Russell." She replied immediately. "So it's war now?" I didn't answer. That night, Dean and I sat in the backyard drinking lemonade and watching the stars come out. I couldn't have alcohol yet, doctor's orders, but I didn't miss it. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Getting there. You think you'll ever forgive her?" I thought about that for a long time. I don't know. But I won't forget. 2 weeks after I left the hospital, the case started to unfold like rotten wallpaper, peeling back layer by layer, exposing the mold underneath. Russell called me one morning while I was organizing medical bills and logging new prescriptions into a spreadsheet. He didn't say hello. "We got it," he said. "What's it?" "Confirmation of a shared financial account. Opened in Lena's name. Guess who's listed as an authorized user?" I already knew. Eli. Bingo. According to the bank records, the account had been opened 11 months ago. Deposits and withdrawals under 10 grand, mostly cash or wire transfers. A classic maneuver for someone trying to stay under regulatory radar. But the most interesting part? The transactions aligned almost perfectly with the times I was out of town on jobs. Every time I left for work, Lena deposited funds. Every time I was home, the account went quiet. She hadn't just taken my money. She'd been stockpiling it in a bunker I didn't know existed. Russell called it premeditated asset concealment. I called it betrayal, calculated down to the cent. I sat at Dean's kitchen table with the account printout in front of me, watching the morning light stretch across the floorboards. Dean poured coffee into my mug. "You look like you just read your own obituary." "She used our life like a decoy," I said quietly. "All that time, pretending we were struggling. Pretending she wanted to make it work." "She was already gone," Dean replied. "You were just the last to know." We filed a motion the next day for an emergency asset freeze. Russell prepped the paperwork like he'd done it 1,000 times. Which, judging by his cool demeanor, he probably had. "Think the judge will go for it?" I asked. He adjusted his glasses. "If he doesn't, he shouldn't be a judge." The morning of the hearing, I wore the same tie I'd used for weddings, funerals, and job interviews. It had frayed edges and a faint oil stain, but it was the only one I owned. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Just a few rows of benches, a single flag in the corner, and a judge who looked like he didn't have time for drama. Lena walked in with her attorney, a sharp-featured woman named Meredith Klein. Tailored suit, hair pulled so tight it looked like she was carved from porcelain. Her eyes scanned me briefly, then dismissed me like a dentist checking a cavity. Lena, however, looked less composed. She wore a beige coat over a navy dress, modest, calculated. She didn't look at me directly, but her fingers kept twitching near her collarbone. "A tell, maybe." "Judge Ramsey," Russell said, standing. "We're filing an emergency motion based on financial deception and premeditated concealment." He explained the account, the cash transfers, and the coordination with my travel schedule. Then he submitted the documentation. Klein tried to interrupt. "Your Honor, we can test these claims." "I haven't asked you to speak yet, Ms. Klein," the judge said sharply. "You'll have your turn." When she did speak, Klein argued that Lena had full access to the funds as a spouse. That she'd simply set aside money for her future, unsure of mine due to my high-risk lifestyle. "High risk?" I said, standing. "I had a heart attack. That doesn't make me a criminal." "Sit down, Mr. Rourke," the judge said firmly. "We'll get to that." Russell handed the judge one final piece of evidence, a screenshot from Lena's shared account, showing a recent $7,000 transfer to Eli, labeled only as consulting. "Consulting?" the judge asked. Klein's jaw tightened. "We assert that Mr. Jensen is a friend who assisted with property renovations. Then why is the transaction tied to a personal account and not a business one?" Russell asked. No answer. The judge tapped his pen against the desk. "Here's what I see. A wife who accessed marital funds while her husband was incapacitated. Funds that were rerouted into a separate, secret account under false pretenses. And a secondary party who appears to be romantically and financially involved." He turned to Lena. "Ms. Rourke, are you planning to leave the state with Mr. Jensen?" Her voice cracked. I don't know. I do," the judge replied. "Which is why I'm freezing both accounts until further notice. You are also barred from selling or transferring any assets, including your vehicle or personal property, without court approval." Lena looked like she'd been slapped. Outside the courthouse, Russell and I stood under the gray sky, watching Klein and Lena get into their rental car. "She didn't look prepared for that," I said. "She wasn't," Russell replied. "She thought you'd roll over." I watched as their car pulled away. Lena turned briefly and caught my eye through the window. This time, I didn't look away. That night, Dean grilled burgers in the backyard. The air smelled like pine needles and charcoal. I hadn't eaten meat since the hospital, doctor's orders, but I took one bite anyway. "Worth it," I said, chewing slowly. Dean smirked. "How's it feel?" "Like something's ending," I said. "But not in a bad way." The next morning, Russell called me again. "Want some good news?" he asked. "Hit me." The judge just approved our request to subpoena Eli's financials. If he's using that money for anything big, like house payments, travel, gifts, it strengthens our case. Think we can prove collusion? We're halfway there already. The more they try to hide, the more we expose. He paused. "And Micah, I think we're looking at not just a divorce win. We're looking at potential criminal charges." I sat back in my chair, heart thudding, not from stress, but from something that felt like justice. "How long will that take?" "Depends on how fast they fold." That evening, I went for a walk around the neighborhood. The sun dipped below the tree line, and kids rode bikes between driveways, laughing like nothing in the world could ever break. And I realized something. Lena hadn't just underestimated me. She had forgotten who I was. I've worked jobs in sub-zero temperatures, fixed electrical panels in pouring rain, driven 16-hour shifts without blinking. I don't quit. I endure. And now, I wasn't just enduring. I was fighting back. The text came at 2:04 a.m., vibrating softly on the nightstand beside me. "We need to talk. Just the two of us. No lawyers. Lena." I stared at the screen for a long time, letting the pale glow wash over the dark room. I didn't respond. I'd learned the hard way that direct conversations with her weren't about truth. They were about strategy, manipulation disguised as emotion. She was losing ground. And she was desperate. The next morning, Russell's voice came through my phone before I finished my coffee. "She's trying to bait you," he said. "Don't take it." I didn't respond. "Good. Because we have more important things to worry about." He paused, and I could hear the sound of shuffling papers on his end. "We just received bank statements from Eli's accounts. There are transfers from Lena's secret fund into a new joint account." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Joined? As in co-owned?" "Yep. That consulting fee she sent him? Not a payment. A transfer. She's been funding him." My knuckles tightened around the mug. "Anything else?" "One of the deposits from her art retreat weekend was used as a down payment on a rental property." "Guess whose name is on the lease?" I didn't need to guess. "Eli." "And?" I asked. "And Lena." That afternoon, I went for a drive past our old neighborhood. I hadn't been back in weeks. Our house, my house, legally, looked smaller than I remembered. Distant. Like a stage prop I walked away from. The backyard shed Eli had helped build still stood there, freshly painted. The patio had new tile. The lawn was edged. Everything looked just right. Too right. I circled the block and parked across the street. A sleek silver SUV pulled into the driveway. Lena stepped out, wearing workout clothes. Eli followed, carrying a bag of groceries. I watched them laugh. Just for a moment. Then I took out my phone and recorded 30 seconds of them entering the house together, her hand brushing his back, his keys on the ring beside hers. Back at Dean's, I showed the clip to Russell. He leaned in, Eyes narrowed. This helps. Not just for the divorce, but if we want to hit them with civil fraud later. You think that'll stick? He nodded. If we can show that they conspired to hide or reroute marital assets, then yes. That's fraud. Especially since she did it while you were incapacitated. A jury won't like that. I tapped the screen. We have more than motive now. We have pattern, paper trail, physical evidence. Russell smirked. And emotion. Judges eat that up. Especially when the betrayal is this personal. We filed for a secondary injunction the next day, this time not just to freeze assets but to restrict Lena's access to the property. The argument: she had breached the court's previous order by misusing funds and cohabiting with someone involved in the case. Meanwhile, Russell subpoenaed security footage from the apartment complex where Lena and Eli had supposedly leased a unit together. It wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was about exposure. A week later, we stood before Judge Ramsey again. Lena looked worn. The glow was gone. No makeup this time. Just stress around the eyes and a lawyer who now seemed far less confident. Eli wasn't in court, he wasn't a legal party to the divorce, but his shadow loomed over everything. Russell laid it all out. The transfers. The joint account. The co-signed lease. The security footage of them entering the apartment together. The financial history correlating Lena's retreats with deposits and payments to Eli. Klein tried to spin it, said Lena was only seeking stability during a confusing time, that Eli had offered support when her marriage appeared over. Russell calmly placed a signed affidavit from my cardiologist on the desk. Mr. Rourke was medically incapacitated. During that time, Mrs. Rourke systematically moved assets, concealed funds, and used those resources to set up a life with another man, all while failing to disclose any of it to the court. Judge Ramsey rubbed his temples, clearly exhausted by the drama. But then he looked up at Lena, his eyes hard. Mrs. Rourke, I'm inclined to believe this was not confusion. This was calculation. He paused. You're lucky criminal charges haven't been filed. The room fell silent. I could see Lena shrinking in her seat. For the first time, her eyes met mine, and they didn't carry fire or venom. They carried fear. Good. When the judge granted us expanded control over the marital property, he also ordered Lena to vacate within 5 days. Failure to comply, he said, will result in contempt charges. Outside the courthouse, Russell and I stood in the wind as Lena and Klein walked quickly to their car. You think she'll fight back? I asked. Russell shrugged. Not anymore. She's out of tools. He handed me a manila folder. What's this? The final offer. If she doesn't contest it, you get 80% of the assets, the house, and legal fees paid from her share. She walks away with her car, whatever's left of her art equipment, and that apartment lease she now can afford. I opened the folder, reviewed the numbers. Then nodded. She'll take it. 2 nights later, Dean and I sat in lawn chairs on his back porch, listening to crickets and drinking lemonade again. He looked over. Think she's sorry? No, I said. But she's scared. And that's enough. The next morning, I got a final message from Lena. You made your point. I lost. Hope it was worth it. I stared at the screen. Typed. Deleted. Typed again. Then I sent. I didn't win. I survived. And that was the last thing I ever said to her. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks after the last court hearing. It ended not with a bang or a scream, but with the mechanical thunk of a judge's signature and the whir of a clerk's copier. Lena didn't show up. Her lawyer submitted the signed agreement electronically. The terms were exactly what Russell had outlined. I retained the house and the truck. 80% of our joint assets were allocated to me. Lena was responsible for all legal fees out of her share. She relinquished all future claims to my pension and health coverage. It was more than fair. It was justice, measured and quiet. When the clerk handed me my official divorce decree, I expected to feel triumphant. But I didn't. What I felt was weightless. Like the air had cleared after a storm. I moved back into the house the following weekend. It felt like walking into a museum dedicated to someone else's life. The fridge still had organic salad dressings I never liked. Her throw pillows still decorated the couch in symmetrical little rows. The bookshelf was full of books she never read, displayed for aesthetics. A layer of silence coated everything. I spent one night there. The next day, I began packing. I sold the house within a month. Real estate in our area had boomed since the pandemic. I got a good offer from a young couple looking for their forever home. I didn't tell them what had happened in it. That wasn't their burden. I bought a smaller place 2 towns over. A single-story craftsman with a red door and a real fireplace. No more shared walls. No more ghosts. It wasn't big, but it was mine. Mine in the way that didn't need defending. Dean helped me move in. He brought pizza, a six-pack of ginger ale, and a toolkit I didn't ask for. We stood in the driveway after unloading the last box. "You good?" he asked. "Getting there." He nodded. "Let me know when you're ready to help me build that deck." "Deal." I never spoke to Lena again. Not through texts. Not through friends. Not even through whispers in town. Eli moved out of his rental a week after the court froze his accounts. Word was he took a job out in Montana. Good riddance. Lena, I heard through someone at the hardware store, went back to her sister's place in Washington State. Someone said she was teaching art classes out of a yoga studio. Someone else said she was living in a camper van by the coast. The stories changed weekly. I stopped listening. My heart healed slower than I expected. Not physically, that recovery went well. My new cardiologist had me walking daily, eating clean, and cutting stress like it was cancer. No more late-night takeout. No more 12-hour shifts. No more running on fumes. I never returned to the long-haul circuit. The doctor said the lifestyle would be a risk, and for once, I listened. Instead, I started working as a regional dispatcher for a small electric co-op. It was quiet work, managing routes, coordinating crews, checking logistics. I was home by 5, in bed by 10. Boring? Maybe. But there's peace in boredom. One afternoon, I visited Megan, my niece, Dean's daughter, at her law school's internship office. She was going through her final semester and prepping for the bar. "I couldn't have done it without your help," she said as we shared lunch on a campus bench. "You did all the heavy lifting," I said. She shook her head. "You believed in me when things were messy. That mattered more than you think." I handed her an envelope. She looked confused. Inside was a check, the remaining balance from my divorce settlement, minus what I'd used to buy my new house. "Megan. Use it for your firm. Start something good." She teared up. "Uncle Micah." I just smiled. "Pay it forward. That's all I ask." That evening, I sat on my new porch, listening to the wind move through the trees. I held a worn photo album in my lap, the only thing I hadn't thrown away or boxed up. Inside were photos from my wedding. Me in a suit that didn't fit quite right. Lena smiling in a field of sunflowers. Our first apartment. Our first truck. Vacations that had felt like promises at the time. I didn't cry. I didn't curse her name. I just closed the album, slid it back into its sleeve, and shelved it next to the old records my father left me. Part of the past. Nothing more. The truth is, the heart attack nearly killed me. But the betrayal? That changed me. There's something strange about surviving something like that, not just the physical part, but the emotional dissection that comes with being betrayed by someone you built a life around. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, what else have I ignored? I'd ignored too much. I'd made excuses, let small lies go unchecked, let love become routine. And maybe that was my fault. But survival means owning your part. And then letting go of what was never yours to carry. A year later, I sat in a coffee shop just outside the town where I grew up. The barista knew my name. The regulars waved when I walked in. I was working part-time as a photography assistant for a wildlife group on weekends, not for the money, just for the love of it. Life wasn't flashy. But it was honest. And when people ask if I'm angry, I say no. Because anger keeps you tethered to what hurt you. And I'd rather be free. Sometimes, healing doesn't look like a comeback. It looks like a quiet morning, a good cup of coffee, a porch that belongs to you, and a story that no longer owns you. And sometimes, the life you rebuild is stronger than the one that tried to break you. Not in spite of the scars, but because of them.